Hey, here's a quick video on how to achieve the style of the Hollow Knight map in Inkscape in a couple of minutes. First, let's break down what actually goes into making the style. First, we've got the outline. We've also got this texture that's going on in the background that's quite subtle. And we've also got this drop shadow that kind of emanates from behind the room. So those are the different aspects that we're going to be emulating when I move over into Inkscape now. So now I am in Inkscape and I've got a new document, except I have pasted in the Hollow Knight map over here just so I can see it while I'm working on this document. And I'm going to start with making the shape of a room by just drawing a box. And I'm going to use this little anchor here to give it a bit of a smooth round corner. That looks good. And I'm going to call this background. Over in my fill and stroke tab, I'm going to give it a very dark green background. So that's just going to match the kind of dark grey background that's in the rooms over here. And now that I've got my background, I'm going to select it, hit duplicate, and call this foreground. And go back into my fill and stroke tab. I'm going to turn the fill off and go into stroke paint. I'm going to turn stroke paint on, and yeah, I'm going to give this like a bright stroke. If you're not seeing any stroke, you may need to come into stroke style and turn this up. That seems good for me. And as you can see, I've got this like kind of quite bright, almost white outline that's perfectly around my box. And if you don't know how I'm zooming in and out, I'm just holding Control and scrolling on the mouse wheel. But you can also go over here into the magnifying glass and hit this if you don't have a scroll wheel. So now I have my foreground and my background, and they look like something like this. This is my background that I'm moving. I also have my foreground, which is just this stroke. I am now going to import a noise texture. So I've got my noise texture here. I'm just going to drag it in. That's fine. As you can see, it's massive. So I'm going to zoom out and move this in. I'm going to hold Control as I do that so that it stays a square. And if I don't hold Control, it gets a bit warped. So I want it to be nice and uniform as it scales down. Just make that kind of the size of the box. Zoom in. Now, noise. Now I'm going to select my noise layer and my foreground layer. And it's important the order that these are in, like the noise has to be on top of the foreground. And I'm going to go up here to Object, Mask, and then Set Mask. And as you can see, I now have this kind of noisy outline that's going around my box, which is great. We're going to achieve the noise in the background, like the slight texture in the background, using our foreground object. So once I'm going to select my foreground object again, and now that it's got a mask, I can still play with the stroke and fill. So I'm going to go back into my fill and stroke. I'm going to go to fill, I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to start making that a bit brighter. And I don't like, I can make it all the way bright, but I don't want it to be too bright. I just want it to be a nice little hint of texture. So I'm going to just turn it down. So it's just a little bit, just got a little bit of texture going on in there, and that might even be a bit too much. I want it to be barely noticeable. So Now the final piece of the puzzle is doing that drop shadow. I'm going to select my background object. I'm going to go up here into filters, down to shadows and glow, drop shadow, and inside this panel I'm going to change a few settings. First of all, I'm going to come over here. Well, first of all, I'm going to hit live preview so I can see what it is that's happening on my object. And then I'm going to go to blur color. I'm going to make sure this use object color is on, and that's just, if that's off, you can just set your own fancy jazzy color in here if you want to. But I just want it to match the background color, so I'm just going to use object color, which is great. And I'm going to turn, these are some settings that I found are good. So I put blurred radius to 2 and the offset to 0 and 0. And I'm going to hit apply, and I hit live preview again, and I'm going to hit apply again. And that's great. So now I have like this big chunky drop shadow. I can close this now. And yeah, that's it. That's basically the entire effect. Is it perfect? No, it's pretty good though. It's 80% of the way there with 5% of the work. One thing that you may want to add is these little details, and that's relatively easy to add. If I come back over here to my foreground, well, first let's draw in the details. So I'm going to go over to my pencil tool, and I'm going to draw a little crack across the corner. You can't see that, so I'm going to go into my fill and stroke. I'm going to turn fill off. I'm going to turn stroke on, and now we can see that. That's good. It's looking good. I'm just going to place that over the corner, and I'm going to copy the noise from before and apply that to this crack line. So I'm going to go onto my foreground object, mask, release mask. So I have my two objects again. I'm going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to just hide these so you can see what's happening. I'm going to set my noise in my foreground. I'm going to mask, set mask. And now when I turn these two on and I combine these two also with the same way, set mask, we now have like a nice little crack on the corner. You can add in little details, free to add little like doodles, like a little ladder if you want to. But once you draw it, you can just apply a mask over the top, and it will feel like it's kind of part of this cohesive drawing. If you're not sure, that's kind of the effect right there. There's not too much else you need to know. You can kind of stop watching the video right here. If you're not entirely sure about what it is that a mask is doing, let me explain. So if I come over into my other Inkscape document that I prepared, I have got some circle shapes, and I've also got this image that I'm going to use as a mask. So if I duplicate this and I place it on top of my circles, roughly, and I select them, go down to mask, set mask, as you can see, everything that's white in this image has remained, and everything that's black has been cut away, and so you see the background behind it. And so that's basically what a mask does. Anything that is white it leaves, anything which is black it gets rid of in that layer, and that can be combined in really interesting ways. And as you can see here, with this like nice smooth gradient between black and white, you can have this gradient of a mask. And yeah, you can. That's how masks work. Let's get back into my little thing. And now if I duplicate this, I can move it around. If I just move it down here, I can do this as rune number 2. If I select these two and I change these to like a like a bluey colour. I select my background and I set that to be like a bluey colour as well. I can create the different coloured rooms. Let's duplicate it one more time. And I'm going to do the same thing again. Set the strip colour to be a red colour. And then the background colour to also be a red colour. And there we go. You can kind of create that style, and the different shapes that you put in there will create the map effect. So if I just, oh, what is going on? I had the wrong button. So if I hold Shift, if I hold Control, I can create these lines. Boop. And then click there to close it. That looks kind of like, that's roughly what my foreground layer is. Oh, let's pop this in a new layer, shall we? This one. So we call this background, duplicate, foreground. Gonna hide my foreground for a second and set my background fill. Gonna turn my stroke off. So I have my custom room shape here. Great. And I'm gonna copy the noise texture again. Let's just drag you in. Make sure it covers this. I'm going to select the noise texture in the foreground, get to Object, Mask, Set Mask, and then I'm just going to apply the shadow again, drop shadow, so my preview, apply, wonderful. Doesn't look like my foreground is the right colour, so I'm just going to come in here. Great. And there we have it. That's how you can make some, do that a bunch more times around the kind of modules and shapes that you want to do for your thing, for your dock. And that is how to create a Hollow Knight style UI in a few minutes.